The eastern plains were brimming with life, a testament to their newfound strength. But on the horizon, a storm was gathering. Far across the grasslands, the wild dog pack, led by the jealous and restless Gabara, watched from the shadows. Their anger simmered, a low growl in the dying light. Gabara turned to his pack, his voice a snarl. "Kanu thinks unity makes them untouchable," he hissed. "Tonight we will show them what true fear feels like." He was wrong. Fear no longer had a home in the eastern plains. As the moon climbed high, casting a silver glow over the savannah, the night of the silent steppe began. The wild dogs moved like ghosts, their paws making no sound on the dry earth. Their growls were kept low, a rumbling promise of the chaos to come. Eyes glowing with hunger, they crept toward the border, ready to spill into the heart of the plains. But just as their leader was about to cross the invisible line, a low whistle cut through the silence, echoing from the tall grass. It was answered by another, and then a third. The buffalo patrol had seen them. The eastern plains had been waiting. In mere minutes, the animals of the plains formed an unbreakable circle of protection. The buffaloes locked their horns, creating a formidable, living wall. The zebras, a dizzying blur of stripes, formed a fast-moving barrier, ready to confuse and redirect any charge. The cheetahs stood poised, their sleek bodies tense, prepared to run messages across the vast field of defense. High above in the acacia trees, monkeys began dropping seeds, not as food, but as sharp, rattling warnings to pinpoint the enemy's location. Birds circled the sky, their calls signaling the wild dogs' positions to the defenders below. And at the very center of this living fortress stood Kanu. He wasn't roaring. He wasn't radiating anger. He was simply steady, a calm and unshaken anchor in the tense night air. He took a measured step forward, his voice carrying clearly across the divide. "Gabara," he said, his tone even, "the plains have no hunger for war. But make no mistake, we will not be trampled." Gabara spat onto the dust. "You talk like a king. But kings fall." Kanu's eyes seemed to glow with a gentle, inner light. "I talk like a guardian," he replied, "and guardians rise." With a furious howl, Gabara and his pack surged forward, a wave of teeth and claws. But they crashed against a shore they had never expected. Unity. The buffaloes held the line, their massive bodies absorbing the initial shock. From above, the monkeys rained down a distracting shower of hard seeds and pebbles, forcing the dogs to look up, breaking their focus. The zebras darted in and out, their striped patterns creating a confusing mirage that shattered the pack's formation. The elephants, arriving as silent reinforcements, began to stomp the ground in unison, a rhythmic, earth-shaking tremor that rattled the wild dog's confidence to its core. Even the smallest creatures played their part. Tortoises tucked into their shells, forming small, impenetrable shields along the ground. Birds swooped low, not to attack, but to harry and break the pack's concentration. Swift antelopes, masters of speed, dashed through the chaos, cutting off escape routes and herding splintered groups of dogs back into the wall of defenders. Jabara's pack quickly, terrifyingly realized their mistake. They were not fighting a single lion. They were fighting an entire, united plain. As the wild dogs grew desperate, they gathered for one last, frantic charge aimed directly at the center. But this time, Kanu stepped forward, alone. His magnificent mane seemed to capture the moonlight, glowing like a halo. His stance was firm, unmovable, a mountain against the tide. He opened his mouth and released a roar. It was not a roar of anger or aggression. It was a roar of pure, absolute warning. A sound that was filled with the voice of every single animal standing behind him, the trumpet of the elephant, the snort of the buffalo, the chirp of the bird. The sound thundered across the plains, a physical force that shook the very bones of every creature who heard it. It shattered the courage of the wild dog pack in an instant. Gabbara stumbled backward, his eyes wide with a fear he had never known. This is impossible. Kanu took another step closer, his presence overwhelming. Strength does not come from teeth or claws, he said, his voice now a quiet rumble. True strength comes from hearts that beat together, defeated not by violence, but by the sheer power of unity. The wild dogs turned and fled into the darkness from which they came. A profound silence fell over the plains, broken only by the sound of the wind. Then a single cheer erupted, followed by another and another, until the air was filled with the joyful cries of every animal. They were not celebrating a victory in battle. They were celebrating the proof of something far greater, that when a people stand together, no shadow is dark enough to consume them. Kanu lowered his head, a gesture of deep respect to them all. "You protected this plain," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not me, you." Watching from the edge of the circle, old Omego felt tears well in his eyes. The eastern plains were no longer victims. They were no longer silent. They were no longer afraid. They were one. The lion's roar had saved the plains, but it was the plains' unity that had truly saved the lion.